It says it's setting up the meeting for YouTube Live. Done. Okay, so we should be live now. Welcome everyone to this month's new member meetup. Rick is going to be your host today. I'm just jumping in here at the beginning to help with a little bit of tech stuff. So maybe we could just do some quick introductions before we get going. We have a video here that we're going to show from one of our co-founders, John Schull, to give you a little orientation of the community. And I think it's about a 20-minute video, but it's a very good overview to give you some context. And then there'll be time for open Q&A and talking with you guys more after that. I will not be able to stick around for this, unfortunately. I'm just here at the beginning to help get things started. So I'll just quickly introduce myself. I'm Jeremy Simon, longtime e-NABLE volunteer, and I help a lot behind the scenes, sort of running a lot of our online assets and systems, just helping to maintain the infrastructure the best I can, and just sort of here to help where I can. And so, like I said, Rick, are you okay with that? Doing a quick round of introductions, and then I'll hand it over to you?
I'm absolutely fine. Yeah, no problem.
Okay. How about I guess let's start with us, just get the e-NABLE folks out of the way. So Rick, do you want to introduce yourself?
My name is Rick Williams, and hopefully I'll be able to answer any questions anybody might have after we see the video. Just so you know, I have not seen this either.
Yeah, it's a good video. I've seen this one. It's a great overview, and I think it'll get us all probably thinking and asking, probably raise some questions that we might not have in mind now. So it should be a good conversation starter. Sarah, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Sarah. I joined e-NABLE just a couple of weeks ago as the new fellow. I'll be helping with media coordination efforts and managing the hub and different projects. So I'm really excited to be here.
Welcome. Okay, and now our new members for today. Let's start with you, Kamiko.
Hi, I'm Kamiko De Los Santos. I reached out to John and Ben. We had some conversations. I am in Texas, namely Houston, Texas kind of area. I am with the Harris County Public Library System.
Oh,
so
yes, I know who you are. I saw the emails.
Yes, it's me. So I've been working on this project as well as some other green initiative projects surrounding 3D printing. And so I met with John and Ben about, furthering these things and looking at STEM and how we can do STEM programming around, some of these community bills and servicing customers on both sides.
Fantastic.
So, yeah.
And you're connected with a whole network of libraries in that area, right? How many libraries in your network?
I oversee 26 library branches for a digital fabrication maker. And then I also have a home base maker lab in our admin building that's open to the public.
Fantastic. Glad you could be here.
Thank you.
And Gary. Oh, Gary, we're not hearing you. Oh, you're muted. You want to unmute yourself? If you click into your Zoom window, you should have a toolbar on the bottom and there's an unmute button. There you go.
How's that?
Much better.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, hi, Jeremy. I actually attended the meeting last month, so I met Rick there. I'm Gary Richard. I'm in Canada, Ontario, and I've got a few questions. I don't know whether this is the right forum for it, but I have I bought a printer and I've printed a few sample parts. I've hoped to get it on my way. I did have a few questions. One of them was how that I submit the hand that I print for approval.
Okay.
Maybe
we can address that real quick before we play the video. Then is that okay, Rick?
That's perfect.
Okay. So
I'm kind of shifting because I can't see everybody. So
Okay,
Oh, you
thank
should be able to, you should have your view button in the upper right corner so you can change your Zoom view to show the video panel. But I'm going to take over screen sharing for just a moment. And let's just take a look at the hub. So I assume, Gary, you found your way to the e-NABLE hub, what I'm showing on screen now, our online forum. Is that right?
Yes, I have, yeah.
Okay, so on the hub, there's in the main toolbar up here, one of the buttons is badges. And if you go to
Right.
badges, we run a digital badge system. And so the way this works is you would come down here for the device that you made under the maker category, whichever
Okay.
design you made, like say it's the Phoenix V2, click on that badge. And then,
Yeah.
oh, can't do that one because I've already claimed it. Let me find one that I haven't done. So you click on the badge and then you click here where it says claim this badge. Okay. And it'll take you to this screen. And basically all you're doing is filling this out. It tells you what sort of evidence we need for a device that you've put together. What we're looking for really is a video. Let me show you one of those so you can see the details. So if we go to which design did you make?
Well, the design I'm working on is the Phoenix V2.
V2, okay. So the Phoenix V2 in here, basically you're going to 3D print and assemble. That's what you're working on. And then we ask you to share photos. So we want to see good detailed photos so we can really see the quality of the surface and see the print quality and that sort of thing. We're looking specifically for a side, top, and front view so we can see that things are put together. But more importantly, we want to see a short video so we can actually see you manipulating the device and see how it works. And what you'll do is when you go to claim the badge, you'll share a link to the video and attach the photos. And then Rick here will receive that submission. He'll review your evidence. And if everything looks good, he'll award the badge. You'll get an email and it'll be displayed on your profile. So it's all handled remotely. You don't actually need to send your device physically anywhere.
Oh, okay. I was under the impression I physically had to mail or ship the hand to someone to view.
No, you get to keep it. No, we do the inspections remotely. We found this to be the most flexible, and we can pretty much see any issues that way. You know, the issues are almost always having to do with improper assembly or poor print quality, and we can spot those things. So yeah, all we need is the photos and video.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jeremy. Yeah, because
So, yeah,
I did try. I'm sorry, I tried to upload the form. There was a form talked about, and I went to upload that, and it wouldn't load. So
I'm not
so I was
sure
kinda
where you
stuck.
were there. You shouldn't have to upload anything except your photos. Just like I said, go to the badges page and find the one for the device that you made. And you just click where it says claim this badge, and that'll take you into the form. There's nothing, you don't have to upload it.
Okay, great. Okay,
So,
I didn't
yeah,
realize that.
that's okay. Try it again. Let us know if you have trouble, and you know, Rick or I can help you again with that.
Okay, Jeremy, thank you.
So what we were thinking here is we thought we'd show this video because John gives a nice overview of how the community evolved and how we operate and sort of where people can get involved. It's about a 20-minute video, and then that would leave another 15 minutes or so after that for questions and answers with Rick. I won't be able to stick around for this. Does that sound okay to everyone?
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Okay, so Rick, why don't we have you take the screen share back over? And I'm going to make you the host. And I'm going to take my leave. Just want to make sure, I'll just wait until you get the video going to make sure that's all working okay.
Okay, I believe I'm screen sharing.
It's just
Okay, I'm going to make this full screen for everybody.
Yeah.
I know it's only 7:20, but let's see, it should be all right. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start it, Jeremy, if you have nothing else to add.
Sounds good. Thanks all. Rick, I don't think we're getting your audio. Did you have an option when you shared your screen to share system audio?
Yes, no, it just said share screen.
We're not getting your system audio. That might be because you're in the browser and not
Hold on.
Goodness. Sarah, are you using the Zoom client? You're muted, Sarah.
The Zoom client, I don't know.
Did you install the Zoom app, or are you just launching it through your browser?
I think it's
Through the browser?
I'm not sure. I think it's through the browser.
Okay.
I do not see any options here. It looks.
It's
I
not going to
hear
be there.
on
It would
my
be
end.
it would be in the sharing screen when you went to share your screen through Zoom. If you don't have the option there, then it's not going to work through the browser.
I can try it.
All right, why don't you stop your screen share, Rick? And let's have Sarah try sharing her screen to see if when you click on share screen, Sarah, see if it gives you any options about sharing system audio.
Okay.
Share sound is what mine says. I have two options, one for share sound and one for optimize for a video clip. And I think you only get those if you're actually using the Zoom client.
Okay. I have a share
believe I unshared.
sound. I have a share sound and optimize for video clip.
Oh, you do. So let's
Yeah.
have you do it then. Go ahead and
Okay.
so click both of those check boxes. And if you don't, in case you don't still have the URL, let me pass that to you again in chat. It's in your Zoom chat. If you want to open that URL, that's what you're going to share.
Okay.
And you'll need to skip ahead in the video to about 1 minute and 25 seconds. That's where John actually starts talking.
Okay. Okay.
I'm John Schull, co-founder of e-NABLE, and today I want to talk about how e-NABLE works, how it may not work, and why it matters. 7 years ago, when it was not yet true, I claimed that e-NABLE was a global pay-it-forward assistive technology network built on an infrastructure of electronic communications, 3D printing, and goodwill. It wasn't true then, but it has become true. Today, thousands of people in well over 100 e-NABLE chapters around the world have developed scores of designs, delivered thousands of hands and arms, and inspired others to undertake similar ventures. It's not just 3D printing. And how does that infrastructure actually work? 7 years ago, I had no idea. Today, we have some ideas. In the early days, we described ourselves as a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens, changing the world one hand at a time. But as our numbers grew, we struggled to scale up our impact and to coordinate our growing numbers. For the first few years, our internal infrastructure was a Google+ community and Jen Owen's website, Enabling the Future. And as we grew, and the need for organization became obvious, we did the obvious thing. We created an organization, a 501c3 nonprofit called e-NABLE Community Foundation. We hired a CEO, professional management. We got a $500,000 grant from Google. We were on our way, except we soon learned that we were on our way to disaster. It turns out that the obvious thing wasn't the right thing. What went wrong? Everyone has their own theory, but I think two things. One, money and professional management undermined our self-organized and productively disorganized volunteer community of amateurs. And secondly, and this should have been obvious, but it wasn't then, runaway online communities are toxic. It even happened to our warm, friendly, compassionate tribe. And according to Clay Shirky, who wrote in 2003 about this, it happens to every other online community that grows to some threshold. For many of us, 2016 was the worst year of our lives because these two impulses ran into each other. I say 2016 was the worst year of our lives, but 2020 may be the same story. These days, we're all online, and we're all showing clear signs of toxicity. There's actually some interesting science to help us understand all of this. Anthropologists believe that the primate brain can only handle 150 personal relationships. Beyond that, the complexity overwhelms us. You'll have to bear with me for a minute. In a past life, I was a biological psychologist. But the fact is that the number of possible connections increases as roughly the square of the number of connections you have, the number of contacts you have, and it gets very quickly overwhelming. The typical solution to this problem is spider-like hierarchical organization and a coercive infrastructure to keep everyone in line. Spider-like, think of a spider. It's got a central brain. You cut off the brain, everything falls apart. Have it together, and it's got all of these ways of operating its legs, and it's very effective. A single commander in a coercive hierarchical social infrastructure is the civilizational spider that can control millions of subordinates in its great web. It's tried and it's true. What could possibly go wrong? At their best, command and control organizations sustain themselves by extracting value from the environment and distributing some of it to employees via well-structured incentives or within the constraints imposed by rule of law or threat of punishment. But at its worst, a few bad apples in charge of the infrastructure or a single point of failure or a corrupt system can take everyone down. And I'm not commenting about 2020. For better or for worse, e-NABLE evolved from an aggregation, an unmanageable aggregation of thousands of individuals into a collection of many relatively small, self-organized teams, groups, and chapters. Because they're small and localized, these groups can organize themselves as they see fit. They can interact as social humans and social primates, and they can develop solutions appropriate to their local circumstances, abilities, and norms. We've become a network of chapters, but what keeps us in sync? What keeps us in sync is the starfish form of organization, or in fact, jellyfish, if you take this actual diagram that I've made of how e-NABLE actually is organized. Starfish and jellyfish are not organized like spiders or mammals. You can cut them into pieces, and the pieces recombine and regrow, and each piece does its own thing, and each piece can reproduce and spread. In e-NABLE, the pieces are chapters. And while some chapters and some e-NABLE nonprofit organizations do exist as command and control organizations, e-NABLE as a whole is not that. It's a movement, not an institutional organization. Movements and organizations are very different beasts. I like to call e-NABLE a no-no, a non-organization of non-organizations, but the truth is that some of our subsystems, like the e-NABLE Alliance, who organize this conference, are organizations. Nonetheless, it's important to understand that the overall community is governed by the rules of movements, not by the rules of organizations or enterprises. Thing is, no one's really clear what the rules of movements are. Here's my take on this problem. Movements and organizations are two alternative solutions to the problem of coordinating large and growing numbers of people. When you go from few people to many people, you can either go down the traditional command and control route, or you can move down the movement route. These two trajectories are quite different, and society still hasn't figured out how these two approaches can work together. But they begin, typically, by shared vision, values, and goals articulated by visionaries and evangelists. Then it's either command and control or this mysterious other stuff that coordinates more and more people. The usual enterprise approach says you go from visionaries and evangelists to founders and financiers and employees or soldiers, managers or commanders, commanders in chief. You have an institution or an organization and an enterprise, and it has a business model which is increasingly based on profit or mandatory taxes. Remember those armed policemen guarding the money? In contrast, we can't hire, we can't fire. So all we can do is inspire and coordinate. And I think we do it by going from shared vision and values and goals to shared practices to optional utilities and services that make it easier for people to do the right things while requiring that no one do any particular thing. And in time-tested movements, they end up developing traditions, creeds, and manifestos. I'm thinking of religions, for example, or Alcoholics Anonymous, for example, which are all starfish-like organizations that somehow get the job done. Well, how do we get our job done? I think, as I said, it's shared values, shared practices, optional utilities, those three things. I'll just break them down a little bit. Shared vision and practices. You know, eNABLE's vision and values have never been officially articulated, never because there are no officials, but we were lucky because our values shine through every news story about a smiling child, a jubilant volunteer, and a donated open source device. The story tells itself, and it's a good thing because we're still learning how to tell our own story. Now, these delivery stories and our growing library of freely given designs and documents are obvious talismans of goodwill and good intentions. So that works. And what motivates the eNABLE volunteers themselves? It's not just a vision. What's in it for them? Well, I find Maslow's hierarchy of needs to be an interesting way of thinking about it. As many of you know, Abraham Maslow is said to have come up with this hierarchy that says, look, all of us, all animals have to deal with their physiological needs and survival. When that's taken care of, they can deal with safety. When that's taken care of, they begin hankering after love and belonging. Then it's a matter of esteem of others and self-esteem. And then ultimately, if you live so long and you have the luxury to worry about it, you worry about self-actualization. You're always struggling, by the way. It's just the level that you're struggling at. Well, we have found, we eNABLE volunteers have found, that if we partner with people who have unmet needs of a more fundamental kind, physiological, mechanical, social needs, we can work on our sense of belonging, our sense of esteem, our sense of self-actualization, our sense of purpose by collaborating with people who, with regard to the services we can provide at least, are not in as easy a position as many of our volunteers, which is really just an awkward way of saying that it's a partnership. This is not a charity. There is something in it for those of us who do the volunteer work. There's something in it for those of us who benefit from the volunteer work. And by the way, those are often and increasingly the same people. Many of our most productive volunteers these days are themselves amputees who have benefited from eNABLE and are now serving and leading eNABLE. So shared values and a sense of purpose is what motivates us to act and points us in the same direction. What we do when we act, what we do, those are our shared practices. These are the essentials, according to me. I'd be interested in your ideas as well. Obviously, open source methodologies are really important. They are one of the miracles of the modern age, and we have been greatly inspired by them. The gifting of devices is something many of us engage in. And again, it's a self-organizing practice that reinforces our values and allows us to communicate what we do and how we do it to other people. Then there's some terms that don't have a good name. I talk about no-nos, other people talk about duocracy, and there's even a book about adhocracy. But the main point is that we don't have leaders who lead by authority. We have leaders who lead by virtue of being willing to step up and try to get the job done. Responsibility is attached to people who do the work rather than elected or selected officials. Openness is really important. Certainly the openness we learn from open source, but also open access. Everything we produce is available to anyone on the planet who wants access to it. You don't have to qualify, which brings us to open participation. We have elementary and high school students and college students and unemployed people who make major contributions with or without academic degrees or certifications. We are open, 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 and we want to be more open. Transparency is an important part of that as well. The closest thing we have to a governing body is the so-called Strategic Planning Committee. None of us have authority. Anyone can attend. The meetings are videotaped and posted on the web every week. We use a voting system called Lumio to commit real money to projects proposed by volunteers. Anyone in the e-NABLE community can propose a project. Anyone in the e-NABLE community can vote the funding proposal up or down. Anyone can be in the e-NABLE community. And the finances for the e-NABLE Fund, which is controlled by this Lumio voting process, are themselves open and transparent using a website called Open Collective. So those are our shared practices. So that begins to sound like a story, but then of course the question is, how do we shape those practices? I think we shape those practices using what I'm awkwardly calling optional utilities. The point is, they're utilities, they're available, they're optional, no one has to use it, but we put them together to make it easier for people to do the things we want to encourage than it is for people to go their own way and to go in other directions. Most enablers go their own way, but these optional utilities provide a certain centralizing tendency for bringing people towards our shared values, practices, and activities. Those activities, for example, happen visibly in the e-NABLE Hub at hub.enable.org. Anyone can join, but you can find information day by day about e-NABLE volunteers and what they're doing. e-NABLE Web Central, put together by Jeremy Simon, the chair of the Strategic Planning Committee, and his company 3D Universe, coordinates volunteers and recipients and is increasingly a database for storing information about our activities. Most e-NABLE volunteers don't use e-NABLE Web Central, but many can, anyone can, many do. And it provides a repository of information about e-NABLE activities and e-NABLE technologies, which turns out to be quite useful in shaping other utilities. We have the e-NABLE chapter map produced by Mažvydas Sverdiolas in Lithuania, which allows chapters to put themselves on the map be found by other chapters. And while no one has to be on the map, by having the map and by describing the conditions under which chapters can get themselves on the map, we can articulate and encourage, if not enforce, the standards that we collectively think are valuable standards for chapters. Similarly, we have a badging system which identifies laudable achievements and laudable contributions, and anyone who wants can get a badge and demonstrate that they have met the criteria defined by the badge, and they can proudly put their badge wherever they want. We haven't figured out a good place to put badges. I think they should pop up on everyone's screen whenever you're in an e-NABLE meeting, but we haven't figured out how to do that yet. And then, of course, Lumio and the e-NABLE Fund are another example of a optional activity. You've all heard the expression herding cats. It's a really hard thing to do, they say, but our approach to herding cats is illustrated at the bottom of this screen. Turns out it may not be all that difficult to herd cats if you can structure an environment so that nearly random activity by the cats ends up collecting them all where they are best off and where we most want to see them. There's actually a word for this, again, in biology. It's called stigmergy, the notion that the environment, rather than command and control by a central organizing force, can organize behavior the way ant colonies and flocks of birds create an environment in which they organize each other, even though there are no designated leaders. That's my analysis of how e-NABLE governs itself. And I think it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful not just because it brings new solutions to underserved populations. I think it's wonderful because it is a plausible, potentially scalable recipe for re-knitting the global fabric of society. I think e-NABLE can fill gaps that traditional organizations leave unfilled by putting people ahead of profits and by organizing good-willed people around shared values that put people first. And I have tried to illustrate that in this little video. My claim is that traditional organizations, governments, NGOs, and businesses are great, but there are gaps. And it is in particular underserved populations and the disabled who fall through those gaps. That's why they're underserved and disabled, and we don't treat them well. It's really not a pretty picture. I think e-NABLE is prototyping not just a social safety net, but a platform that anyone can use to increase and improve the society that we're all a part of, to climb the ladder of self-esteem and of personal needs and self-actualization, and to create a new platform that complements traditional organizations, can fill gaps, and do things that traditional organizations cannot do. That's why I think e-NABLE is really important. I say it's plausibly and potentially a way to re-knit the fabric of society because it's only plausible and it's only potential. It may not work, but we don't call it enabling the future for nothing. It might work. We may be right, and the more of us who try to make it work, the more likely it is that it will work or become a more significant part of the society that we are creating together, whether we like it or not. That's my story about how e-NABLE works and why it matters, and I want to thank you for being a part of it. Thank you.
Okay, what does everybody think?
Pretty impressive, I would say.
Yeah, I think John definitely summed it up. We were looking for that video today, trying to remember where it was, but a lot of the times it gets confusing. even to people that have been here a while, how it works and where is everything and what do I do with it when I find it. So I remember you being here last time, Gary. You were at our last
Yeah.
meetup.
I've made some progress. As I say, I've gotten a printer and I've done some samples, and I've actually printed an arm section, and I hope to do more. I did have a question today, if you don't mind, Rick.
No, not at all. This is why we're here.
Okay, I've downloaded the files from the Thingiverse to the slicing Cura program. Now, the suggestion was to duplicate the parts at 120%, I believe, because 100% is too small a hand, which I've done. My question is, the hole sizes, you know, for the different attaching components. When you size it up to 120%, do the hole sizes stay the same, or do I have to make some changes?
Okay, this really depends a lot on which arm, hand, or offering that you're working with. For instance, some of the designs are what's called parametric. Okay, a lot of the ones, especially that use SCAD, are all parametric, and the parametric designs, the size of the holes are maintained no matter what you size the device to.
Oh, okay.
However, there are some of the designs that do not use SCAD, where you're basically, all you have is an STL. And at that point, if you size it up or down, the size of the holes also sizes up and down. And I know that's inconvenient. A lot of the builders, it really is kind of up to them whether they make a device parametric or do not. Parametric designs are awesome because of what you just described. Everything that is supposed to, you know, to stay the same, even though the device itself changes in size. Okay, that is very, very nice from a build perspective. For instance, there's the Kawanu. I always pronounce it wrong. It's an offering that is the more difficult device, but it uses all parametric designs. And most of the time they will post that, whether or not the device is in fact parametric, or if it works in Customizer, which is usually describing SCAD. SCAD is a free CAD program that is more of a language than it is a graphical CAD program. I think it'll become more obvious as you build more devices, but
Okay.
If you just have an STL and nothing else, high probability is that it is not parametric.
Well, I'm working on the Phoenix hand. How would I know whether it's parametric or not?
You probably, with the Phoenix, when you downloaded it, all you had was STLs. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So because it's just STLs, if you resize that hand, holes and say brackets that where you would put your straps will also grow by, in your case, 120%.
Oh. They would you say that again?
So let's just say that you had a hole. I'm gonna make it up. Just say a 1/4 inch hole that was in an STL. If you increase that to 120%, the hole would also increase as well, the size of that hole. Now, a lot of people don't care. What they'll do is they'll either fill it, or they'll just get a bigger screw if it's not too inconvenient. In some of the builds, the holes are guidelines. in a lot of the builds. They're just guidelines, and a lot of the times people will make it a little larger to accommodate a larger or smaller screw. And it sounds scary in the beginning, but it's really not that bad.
Okay. Well, if you make the let's say the plastic pins that attach, if you also make them 120%, does that mean they would fit the new design?
Yes.
Like
So
they would fit
typically
the
what you would
enlarged hole?
do is, yes, you would probably take, that's a little different than the screws, unless you're creating your own screws, which some people do. In some of the builds, even the screws are included, where you print them as well, and that's another way of doing it. So let's just say you have two STLs. One is for, say one is for item A and one's for item B. You would probably want to make both of those 120%. And what that would do would mean in the end, they would all fit together perfectly. If you print them at different sizes, that wouldn't be good, because then one will end up at 100%, of course, the other at 120, and you would have issues.
Okay, so as long as I make them all 120%, it should still they should still mate. Okay.
Yes, 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 yes.
Okay. All right.
The difference, though, is if you're getting off-the-shelf screws and you're not printing your own.
Yeah.
And as you move up the ladder to more sophisticated and complex designs, you're going to see the word parametric more often, and parametric makes all that go away.
Okay.
They are a little more difficult to initially understand and to build, but maybe when that happens and you're ready, one of us can go offline and do a Zoom and walk you through it. Also on Thingy, since you've been there, Thingy Universe, there's an area that you could experiment without actually committing. It's called customized, so which is designs that may not be arms and hands, but it's devices that are by definition parametric. And it might behoove you to go in there and see how that works, because you can customize it right there on the screen. You don't even have to download it. And then you can see how the customization process works, and it works with variables. Like you could say, well, I want this hole to be 1/4 inch to accommodate a 1/4 inch screw. And then you get to decide how big the holes are before you even consider printing.
Oh, okay. That sounds good.
It's
Yeah,
very
I'll have a
nice.
look at that.
Yeah, but just look for customizer in Thingy, and you'll find some of those run online. Or if you want, you can get a copy free of SCAD. It's called Open SCAD, all one word, OPENSCAD, and it's totally free. It's super powerful tool for doing CAD,
Okay.
especially building parametric devices. Some of the end users have even used SCAD on non-parametric builds, and they've imported the STLs and then modified them with SCAD to make them parametric.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll play around with it and
Yeah,
hopefully
it's
have
a little
some success.
scary at first. It's a little scary at first, but don't worry, it's not that bad. It is a language of its own, but it is a really great tool, and you can't beat the price of free. They've done an amazing job, still supported, still coming out with new releases. And I will tell you, it's super beneficial. Something you might want to learn in your spare time, but don't break your neck to learn it. But it's something that I think you'd be surprised the number of assets that are in there. For instance, there's free. Everybody contributes free. Say you don't want to go out and buy screws off the shelf, you can actually download an entire customized SCAD environment. It'll say, I will make those screws for you. You tell me what you want the size to be, what material, do you want it to be metric or imperial? And you want it to be flathead or hex tie, and you could print your own screws, all your own hardware.
Oh, great. Sounds amazing. Yeah.
It is very useful, very, very useful. And if you download a package like that, it's not like you have that much to learn. Somebody's already done a lot of the work for you. All you do is set the variables. Like I want a hex head, I want it flat, I want it SAE, I want it a 1/4 inch, diameter. I want it 1 inch long, and it'll just create it for you. It's amazing, super good.
Great. Yeah. Okay, I get the idea. I'll play around with it, see how I make it.
Yeah, do that. Playing with it is having the option to play with things is much better because the pressure's off. Uh, you don't want to learn this stuff when you're under the gun. That's
No,
it's best
no,
to do it when
exactly. That's right.
it's time.
Yeah.
And call
Okay.
one of us if you get in trouble. I would highly advise. Thingy is going through some serious changes right now, so I would recommend that until they're done redoing their system, that you get a copy of your own copy of SCAD, and don't use their customizer until they're done. Lately, it's been throwing a lot of errors, and I'm sure they'll fix it.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, get your own copy. Then you can do everything offline. You don't need the internet, and you're good to go.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, Rick. Thank you.
No problem. I don't know if you guys have any other questions. So I don't even know how many of us. There's only still 3 of us. I guess that's kind of good in a way because I can only corrupt 2 of you now.
Yeah. Well, you've answered the questions that I have at the moment. I think I'll just
Now,
proceed
as
with
time
what I've
goes
been doing.
on, I heard earlier you asked a question about donating the hands that you build. The time will come when somebody is going to make a request, and instead of just printing it for a badge, you're probably going to be printing as a donation. And
Yeah.
that's really I think when you're going to see how much fun this is, because somebody's going to need something, and you can become then one of the donors and make it to their specifications.
Yeah.
That's where it really gets a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm looking forward to.
In the
Yeah.
beginning, though, believe me, it is better just to experiment and build this arm, and do it. It doesn't mean
Right.
it's going to go to waste. Somebody very well might need one that's at 120%. So
No, I understand.
don't discard it.
No, I understand that. Yeah, this is a sample, and maybe it'll become useful. Yeah, I understand
Yes.
that. But I have been browsing a lot of the pages, on your site, and looking at a lot of the videos. So I'm gaining some information and experience, but
Yes,
it's starting to
you'll
come
find it
together
invaluable.
slowly.
Completely invaluable. It's so good to do the hand. You can read all day long, but to actually do one yourself and thread it yourself, and you're going to end
Exactly.
up with tools you like and methods you like that work
Yeah.
for you. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. I have devices that are my favorites that I build. Everybody does. That
Yeah.
you're just good with. The Kwanu is probably my favorite. That's probably my favorite device. And
Is it?
I mispronounce it. It's KWAWU. And I think it's one of the best builds at e-NABLE personally. But it's also very sophisticated and difficult to build and to assemble.
Yeah, well, that's why I selected the Phoenix, and that's the one that's suggested to be, as I understand it, the most popular.
Yes.
So I thought I'd start with that anyway.
No, you did the right thing. It's an awesome build. It's been around. It's tried and true. It's easy. You can eventually you're probably going to play with some thermoforming and sizing. There's actually some Excel spreadsheets out there. I don't know if you're an Excel person, but some of the Excel spreadsheets are pretty nice. Microsoft
Sorry,
Excel.
You broke up there. What was that, Rick?
Microsoft Excel spreadsheets that are available to help with sizing. So, you can kind of plug the numbers in. Like when you measure someone, their arm is this long, their forearm is this big around, and the Excel spreadsheet kind of helps you with the math.
Right.
There's some people out there that's all they do is sizing, and they're very good at it. But
okay.
it's a great skill for you to learn, because you're probably going to want to do it yourself eventually.
Well, I have looked at those videos of the hanging yardstick and so on, and the photography involved. I've read it. Obviously, I haven't used it, but
Right. But as
gradually
you're
it gets-
building, you can kind of look backwards and say, oh, I see why they're doing that, or maybe you've got a better way depending upon the case. Every case is a little different. There's just no one way.
Right, okay. Yeah, well, I may have more questions, obviously, when I get further involved. And I
That's okay.
appreciate your help.
Now, Gary,
Mhm.
did you make it to the hub? Are you on the hub now?
Yes, yes,
Okay. And that's a great place for you to post, not only post questions, but also see what other people are working on. And, you know, when you see something going on that interests you on the hub, you could maybe go in there and say, look, I wouldn't mind, you know, either auditing or watching or helping with this project. And you can learn a lot that way from people that are already working on something. And they're very nice about working to help you.
oh, yeah, okay, I'll have to look into that. I also, I didn't mention, but I bought a second machine. My son-in-law and his son are interested, so we're going to kind of start a little chapter among ourselves, at least initially, hopefully to learn
Good for
from
you.
one another. They're in Ottawa, Ontario, which is, you know, about a 3-hour drive from where I am, but we're going to keep in touch and occasionally
Can
hope
I
to
ask
get together.
what did you get? What kind of printer did you get?
I got the Creality 3,
Okay.
I believe it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
you
I
know,
had spoken to a lady, Charlotte, who has a chapter near Toronto, and the Creality was the model that they were using, and that other literature seemed to indicate that seemed to be a popular model. That's why I selected that one.
no, that's okay. I mean, they're good printers. They're very good. You know, we get a lot of people that get a lot of different printers. And one of the reasons it's important for you to remember that as you start submitting things and getting your badges, put that information in there. Like I'm using this kind of printer, and I printed it 120%, because somebody coming in behind you, you know, they're starting over and they're going to look to things maybe you have done and get advice
Okay,
as time goes on. So the more information you give somebody, you know, just think of what you've struggled with, you know, with settings and questions. And so when you
right.
submit your badge, other people are going to see that and they're going to come to you possibly for advice. They may have a printer just like yours.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, well, that sounds reasonable, yeah. Well, just as I didn't know where to go, like Jeremy mentioned, to go to the badges to find out the information on approval. I had no idea how the approval process took place. I thought you took the hand and shipped it to someone to review. So that's good to know it's all done.
We're pretty good about that. I basically approve all the builds.
Okay,
And what I do is I use not only the photos, but what I really appreciate is a video where you're actually demonstrating the hand so I can see how it pinches, you know, how do the fingers mesh, you know, how
Right.
much dexterity are you getting with it? And as it moves, you know, always show like the padding and the straps you use. People will learn, you know, by example. And that's kind of what we're about. We want to share our, you know, things we've screwed up so they don't have to
Yeah.
make the same mistakes.
Okay, so this video then should show you operating the hand, picking things up, that sort of thing, and
Anything like that demonstrates how well your hand works. You know, it show the stringing that, you know, you basically like like in the Phoenix, you know, you want to see are the connections good? Did you tie the knots? Did you not only tie the knots, but did you put, you know, little I take women's black nail polish and I put it on all the knots.
Oh,
because
okay.
that keeps the knots from coming
Well,
undone.
one thing I did read, they talked about putting, the super glue on the
Yes,
ends.
but you'll find that super glue doesn't work well on porous things like thread sometimes.
Right, okay.
And what'll happen is it'll chip away after not that long of using it. I use the women's nail polish because that stuff is like indestructible and it dries instantly. I end up not gluing my fingers together or dripping it somewhere bad. That's another
Yeah.
thing. Sometimes when you're putting the super glue in, you'll drip it somewhere where you didn't want to, and now your finger won't
Oh,
bend
yeah.
anymore. Very, very discouraging.
I guess it
You
would
get
be
second
wise to use,
chances.
probably wise to use the clear nail polish, would it? Rather than the
That
color.
or a color. I use black because I use black thread, and then you don't see it.
Okay,
And I like to use, personally, I use a 150-pound fishing line.
okay.
In
150
my mind, the longer the thing lasts, a person can use, 40 or 30-pound, but it's going to start to fray and it's going to start to give way. And that just happens. Now, a lot of the 150 has 8 plies in it. So it will also come unraveled if you don't put something on it. In my
Yeah.
case, I don't really believe in the super glue. I mean, how many things have you fixed with super glue, a week later it falls off, right?
Yeah.
But
It's a-
I think you'll find that you will want to seal all your knots always. Otherwise, we got one little boy whose arm lasted 2 years. So if you
Wow.
overbuild it, you did a really good job if they don't need you anymore for a while.
Yeah, well, that's great. Yeah. So 150 pound line.
Starts in 1 hour.
That's just me. I do that just because it's my preference. I want nothing to break. I want nothing to fray. I want it to outlast the other materials.
Right. Well, sounds reasonable.
And like this one, it looks kind of like this. See, I'm trying to get it in front of this
Yeah.
particular one is 150 right here. And it's not
Okay.
the black that I usually use, but sometimes somebody will throw away and they'll give it to me rather than throw it away. Some fishing line. But I like the heavier stuff only because if it starts to fray, it starts to get in the way of the movement of your hand, right? And it starts to stretch a little. That's why I always overdo the thread.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'll remember that. Good. Okay.
One of the other things that's very, very nice that isn't very expensive is they sell, I'll tell you, these seamstresses at Michael's, they're very, very smart people. And they sell this neat little thing. It's a burner, and you touch it on the thread and it burns right through it and it cauterizes the thread. So all the little hairs are gone. It makes a nice little ball on the end. And I think the thing cost me like $10, and I love it. And it not only does it cut the thread, which is kind of hard, really, but it cauterizes it and makes it not fuzzy.
That sounds
You
good.
might want to
You
grab
say-
one of those, or a soldering gun will work too.
Yeah. You say Michael's at the base?
Michael's has them, and I think it's called a Stitch Queen or something crazy like that. But mine came with a 1.5 volt battery in it, and at the end, it's just got a little cutter, and it just goes right through the thread. I love it.
Oh, okay. I'll look into that. Yeah. Well, I have a soldering iron, but that would sound to be more.
Yeah,
more
yeah, it's
efficient
a little
than
more
that.
for it. It's like, yeah. You can get them on Amazon or anywhere. I think you could look for a thread cutting seamstress or something like that, and you'll see it. But it's just got like a 1.5 volt battery in it, and when it
Okay.
dies, you just put another battery in it. I always have mine when I'm threading because
great.
very hard
Yeah.
to cut, believe it or not, sometimes.
Yeah. I
See, this
suppose.
one is 150 pound, and I broke it.
Oh, yeah.
So imagine, if that had been 30 or
Wow.
40, it wouldn't have lasted this long, but this one snapped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what is that line? What the type of line you use? What is that made of? It's not a nylon line, is it?
They actually make a tungsten
Tungsten.
that you can get, and there's one that's made out of. There's a couple of different ones. I tend to just use the 8-ply, but you want it smooth. One of the other things I'll do is to increase the movement. I will go out and like at woodworking stores, they sell beeswax, and it's in a block, maybe about 2-3 inches long. And and I used to turn pens, and you'd put it on the pen and it'd give it a nice shine. Well, it also, this block, you'll probably, if you buy one of these, I think they're like $4. It'll last you the rest of your life if all you use it is for
So
this.
that's
And I
you
put
use
it on the
that.
string.
Yeah.
It lubricates the string and makes it slide through all the little holes a lot easier.
Oh,
And
okay.
so it's like this great lubricant.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to use oil or something because, of course, that's going to be messy. And the beeswax just works beautifully. I even use it on some of the parts that may touch, that I want them to move nice and smooth. And you can't usually use lubricants on most of these materials. And the beeswax just works super. And I add it once and typically never have to put it on again.
Okay. Great. My daughter's involved
It's a
with
stick, like
beekeeping,
a,
so
yeah,
yeah.
so she probably knows what I'm talking about. But it's kind of my secret weapon for lubrication, because
Yeah.
it will not harm any of your materials. It's it's not going to harm the person. It's hypoallergenic. You don't have to worry about it getting on a human, and them having an adverse reaction, which happens. We've had people allergic to some of these materials.
Oh, yeah.
So you have to be very careful sometimes.
Yeah. Okay, great. I'll do that. I'll look into it. Yeah, well, thank you, Rick. I guess we're about the, are we out of time yet? I didn't mean
I
to
think
hog the
so.
whole.
Sarah's been good enough to have my back yet again, because I apparently am having a computer problem.
Oh. Yeah, I didn't mean
But
to
I'll get it resolved next time.
I didn't mean to tie up the whole meeting here, but
Oh,
Sarah
no,
may
no,
have some
no.
questions.
No, she's put up
No,
with me yesterday, I think. So she's,
no, not at all. This was very interesting for me too. So thank
Oh,
you.
that's good. Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. I didn't want to be boring or anything, or act. I didn't know whether this was the right platform to ask questions, but of that type.
Yeah.
I think it is, because if you get new users and they start hearing these types of things right away, imagine what somebody who's sitting here that's never done this before has just learned from you. You chose the
Yeah.
Phoenix because you did your research, you know, all these things. They may not have known about the submission. So the things you've asked are going to be very useful for other incoming new members. So I would not worry about that.
Yeah, it's just that I'm a novice to the whole thing, including the 3D printing. So I'm starting from from a lack of knowledge.
It won't be long before you're a mentor. You'll see.
I hope so. I'm looking forward to it.
It's a great fun. Great fun. It's the best job I ever had.
Good. Well, you must spend a lot of time between putting on meetings and making hands. You must spend a lot of time involved with this e-NABLE organization yourself.
I'm one of the ones that benefited from e-NABLE. You probably heard John earlier. I was one of the ones that I severed my hand.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you
and so I was a beneficiary.
Oh, isn't that great? Yeah. So that gives you a little extra incentive. Actually, my son-in-law.
It helps you to understand.
Yeah, my son-in-law got interested because he is quite involved with the Ukrainian situation there, and he thought this would be the perfect thing, with all the injuries and so on taking place, that he could contribute, something to the effort over there, whatever.
Well, now
So-
we've got a new Ukrainian effort going on here at e-NABLE. You might want to chat with Sarah and Adam. I think
Oh,
you
yeah?
might find that there's some things going on. Yeah, right. Just it's specific to that.
I did try and contact, I noticed on your map, there is one chapter in Ukraine. And I did send them an email, but I hadn't heard anything in return on that score.
Mm. Sometimes you get stuck in there's like an automated assistant, and sometimes you get stuck in that. But I think you'll find there's actually a whole area in the hub that is specifically for the Ukrainian effort. You might want to just, watch them.
I'll do a little
join it.
research. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
just
would
join
be-
up. Yeah. Sarah,
Yeah, that would-
is there a link? Do you have a link to that initiative or?
I can find it in a bit, and Gary, I can tag you on the hub if that would work for you. I don't have something that I can put in the chat right now.
Yeah, that would be great. Any information? Are you in Ukraine, Sarah? Or?
No, I'm in Minnesota.
Oh, okay.
But I can find you on the hub, or I can
Would it help if I,
yeah,
would it help if I gave you my email?
sure, your email or your if you're on the hub, if you have like what your hub name is, and I can tag you.
Well, I just used my name, Gary Richard.
Okay. I can make sure to tag you.
I can also give you my email if you have a pen there.
Yep, sure.
It's Gary, GARY RICHARD 50 at hotmail.com.
Okay, excellent. I'll follow up with you about that.
That would be great, Sarah. Thank you.
Okay.
Anything else?
Did you have anything else, Gary, that you needed or that
No,
we
right
could help you
now,
with?
no, you've answered all the questions I have at the moment, Rick. Thank you very much. Much obliged.
Okay. Sarah,
And Sarah, nice meeting
you
you,
got
Sarah.
anything?
Yeah. No, not right now. But thank you.
Yep. What is your last
Thank
name,
you for
Sarah?
hosting too, Sarah.
Of course, yeah. Of course.
What is your last name, Sarah?
Gelbard.
Gilbert. Okay, thank you. I can't, I've just got my tablet here. I can't make it out on the screen, so.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
nice. It was
So I'll
nice to
look-
meet you, Gary.
Yeah, look forward to hearing from you.
Wonderful. Okay.
Thank you.
Have a
And
good
thank you, Rick.
afternoon.
Well, thank you,
Yes, sir.
everybody. If nobody has anything, I guess we'll close the session. I don't know if I do that or you have to do that, Sarah. What?
Yeah, that's we can close now. Thank you
I'm not
both.
sure.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Okay,
Nice
thank
talking to you.
you. Bye, everybody.
Yeah.